Hi, we got a bit of a different video today. I was gonna upload a gameplay, but then this trailer came out of nowhere, and I'm gonna ramble about the new cards being revealed here in the Mythical Island set. I guess we got the name for it finally. I have been waiting for this reveal for weeks, and I had no idea it was coming today, so this really caught me off guard. I was gonna react to the video, and I couldn't help myself, man. I just I watched it and I looked into it, so no like actual live reaction going on here, but I got a lot to say about the new cards. This is super exciting. I am so happy with what I've seen. Just to give you guys a little bit of context, I have been I wasn't sure what to expect from the first expansion from Pokemon Pocket, right? The last reveal of cards was the new Haunter and the new Jigglypuff, and I feel like we're getting a lot of back-to-back coin flip effects. I think Lapras ultimately was a little bit underwhelming as well as a card, and I was starting to get a little bit worried that, we weren't really going to have them expand too much on the games, with abilities and stuff, and I started fearing that we're just going to get a bunch of coin flip effects, really, with the first expansion. That was my biggest concern, and also that the first expansion was going to be relatively small-sized, and from what I've seen, all of my worries have been completely trumped down as we have 80 new cards, it says here. The Mythical Island expansion features over 80 cards. And if you look at, we have a total of 15 of them that the trailer reveals to us. And it is just it's crazy. The cards that we're getting, like Aerodactyl EX, and a bunch of really interesting abilities. Some potentially very powerful trainer cards as well. We see that there's a total of 5 new trainer cards being introduced, which is going to definitely have an impact on deck building. That's going to be very interesting because right now, as you guys know, most decks run a pretty determined lineup of trainer cards, right? Because the trainer card pool is at its core. But as it's going to start to expand, we're going to have to start to make more decisions, and deck building is going to get only more compelling. So let's actually just take a look at the trailer here and run through basically some of the cards that are shown. Let's see if we can snipe some of them. The quality of the trailer is just... Don't make fun of my headphones, by the way. It just looks really clean. I saw people commenting that it was going to be like an Eevee set or something. And I guess that was just, speculation, because it is a Mew set and we have the Mew EX card. This is a very interesting EX Pokemon. It has 130 HP as a basic, which is on the low end, though still is higher than something like Pikachu, for example. It matches up with Zapdos HP. So it's, for EX standards, it's like a little bit below average, but it's still up there, right? Can attack for Psyshock with 1 energy for 20 damage. And then 3 colorless energies allows it to do the genome hacking, which is essentially what Ditto wishes you could do. For 3 energy, you choose one of your opponent's active Pokemon attacks and use it as this attack. This is an interesting card to evaluate, because right now the meta revolves around Mewtwo EX and stuff like Moltres into Charizard or Arcanine. And the thing is, Mew kind of just counters those decks. Mew can come in and copy unless make sure I'm reading right. Choose one of your opponent's active Pokemon attacks and use it as this attack. So you copy the side drive from Mewtwo and you get to one-shot it back. Mew is actually a Mewtwo counter, because you're able to go for the side drive before they're able to go for their side drive, because you're able to activate it for just 3 energy. This is crazy. Against Charizard, you can copy the Crimson Storm and blow it back. Against Arcanine, it's not an exact counter, because you can copy Arcanine's attack, but Arcanine does survive his own attack. So it's not like... I really like the design of this card, because it is essentially an EX Pokemon that's going to punish a lot of EX decks with heavy hitters. For example, Mew EX into Pikachu EX is not that good at all, because you need electric type Pokemon in your bench in order for Circle Circuit to hit for more than 30. So it's just not going to be doing much. But the fact that this attack costs 3 colorless energy is very relevant, because it means you could potentially splash Mew into non-psychic decks, maybe even as a one-off to counter those EX decks directly. Like the Ditto deck that I uploaded, you know, this is kind of like a much better version of that. It's thick, it can pivot, it has 1 retreat cost, which is amazing for 130 HP. So it shares that quality with the likes of Pikachu and Zapdos EX, that it is a beefy tank that can pivot in and out. You know, you have to be careful because if it goes down, then you're giving your opponent 2 points. But this Pokemon is very promising. It can really shake up the meta. And I'm surprised they were able to do that right off the bat with a card like this. Like, this is very, very interesting design. And that's what this entire set is about. It's like very compelling design from the get-go. And I've heard like there've been a lot of naysayers saying, no, they're not gonna, you know, incorporate that many more abilities. It's just gonna be coin flip attacks and this and that. Like, but I always believed in this, man. Like, I always knew that this game, the core set was just the beginning. There's a lot of vanilla elements to it. And from this, they have a foundation to build on, and we're gonna get a lot of very interesting mechanics, such as Mew and Aerodactyl, which we're gonna talk about in a minute. But this card is very interesting, very, very interesting. Hard to evaluate, but I think it's gonna be very strong into the current meta. You can actually also copy Articuno's Blizzard, for example, though it's not such a. You can also like into water. It doesn't feel as great, because, you know, you can copy Articuno's Blizzard, but you don't get to ramp into it potentially like water does. And you can copy Starmie EX's attack, but it's going to cost you 1 more energy, so it's just not going to be that great. Ultimately, this card is fantastic going into Mewtwo and Charizard decks, Psychic and Fire decks specifically. And the potential to run it in any sort of deck beyond Psychic, to just focus on the genome hacking aspect of it and use it potentially as a pivot, is going to be really interesting. And watch out for Mew in those specific decks, like not just Psychic decks, but beyond that even. Really, really cool card, and but hard to evaluate because it is more matchup dependent than others. And it's going to be a very meta-dependent EX Pokemon, basically. And it's important to consider because we are getting cards that are going to punish EX Pokemon, which is something that I'm also very excited about as well. Let's have a look at Aerodactyl EX, though. Oh my goodness, this card is just, this came out of nowhere. Like, I thought Aerodactyl's identity, which is going to be the Primeval Wing, I think it's called, you know, just as like a Hail Mary for some decks to deal with like really big stuff. But now we got Aerodactyl EX, which is something completely different. Aerodactyl EX has 140 HP, is a fighting card, which I really like, you know, because Aerodactyl is a flying rock type. So even though the first Aerodactyl that we got is a normal type, this card perfectly fits into the fighting archetype, as, you know, rock types, ground types, and fighting types go into this sort of typing. And it has a very solid HP stat that is equivalent to that of the likes of Moltres and Articuno and Marowak EX. It is able to hit. Marowak EX wishes it was this card. It is able to hit for 80 damage consistently with Land Crush. Before we jump into the ability, like, this attack is extremely reliable. Aerodactyl EX is super exciting because we're getting a very good EX Pokemon that evolves onto a fossil. You can incorporate Aerodactyl EX onto a fighting deck with fossils and have the fighting deck consistently find a specific basic Pokemon instead. Because fossils don't count into the basic Pokemon, like you have to draw, you don't automatically draw them at the beginning of your turn, so you can afford to run less basic Pokemon without running out of Pokemon to fight with, and you don't fish them through Pokeball. So it is harder to find the old Amber, but it also can make the other aspect of the deck more consistent, which is really exciting because having this is a really powerful Pokemon. Like, dealing 80 damage for 2 energy, like Starmie deals 90 damage for 2 energy with 130 HP, but Starmie is like arguably the most broken EX Pokemon in the game. 80 damage is super damn solid, and it's what we really would wish Marowak EX was. Like, if I could just sign Marowak EX deals 80 damage every time instead of like the potential high roll, I would take that version of Marowak EX every single day. So this is already like really good, like the attack on it, right? But then it has an ability, Primeval Law. Your opponent can't play any Pokemon from their hand to evolve their active Pokemon. This is wild. Like, this makes it so that if your opponent wants to evolve a Pokemon, they have to retreat. They have to evolve it in the bench. So this can function. I'm even thinking about like Aerodactyl, Pidgeot, for example. Like I'm thinking about like obviously with cards like Sabrina, shuffling your opponent's deck around essentially. It's not a super like hyper impactful ability in the sense that, you know, your opponent can build up something in the back, but it is a very good ability. Like it gives you the advantage of going first. This is what this ability does. People keep saying in Pokemon Pocket that going second is strictly better than going first. This is what a lot of like newer players or people who are not as experienced with the game say, because it's not an actual factual statement. Most of the time it is better to go second. Like most of the card pool wants to go second, but the benefit of going first is you get to evolve before your opponent. So hypothetical scenario, you're going first, you find your old Amber with Aerodactyl EX, right? You pass your turn, you have your lead, right? Your opponent plays like a Staryu and puts an energy onto it. They want to evolve into Starmie EX next turn. Then it's your turn. Normally you can't really stop that from happening, but then you let's say you X speed or you pivot into the old Amber. All right? I mean, okay, give me a moment. Your opponent can't play any Pokemon from their hand to evolve their active Pokemon. Does this have to be in the active zone? Because I'm thinking you don't even have to pivot this in. Your opponent can't play any Pokemon from their hand to evolve their active Pokemon. This is like one of the first abilities that we have that has a continuous like effect. This is even more interesting than I initially thought. Wait a moment. Your opponent can't play any Pokemon from their hand to evolve their active Pokemon. It does not say that this card needs to be in the active slot. Nowhere in this card does it say that it has to be in the active slot, because Water Shuriken can be activated from anywhere. Right? Like, give me a moment, because I want to check a card like Weezing. That has an effect that can only be triggered in the active slot. I want to see exactly what it says. Once during your turn, if this Pokemon is in the active spot, you may have your opponent's active. Yeah, exactly. Like it does not require for this card to be in the active slot. So you don't even have to have this. So you're going first. You find your old Amber, turn 1. And then turn 2, you evolve into Aerodactyl EX. And then they can't evolve into a Staryu. They have to retreat the Staryu to be able to evolve onto it. This Pokemon's crazy. This Pokemon is actually crazy. Wow. This could be really nasty going first. Going first, Aerodactyl EX can really slow your opponent down and it can really halt that kind of opener. Especially like something like Staryu into Starmie EX, like a strong 2-energy attacker like evolution, stage 1, like completely denied. Because obviously, like if you have like a Moltres lead into like Charmander, this is not stopping that, right? This is stopping aggressive decks that apply a lot of pressure with stage 1 evolutions. Stage 1 tempo evolutions are denied by Aerodactyl EX, and you benefit from going first because you stop this from happening. This card already makes the game a lot more interesting, because now if you go first, if you go second, you have to be like, well, do they play Aerodactyl, right? Like, can they stop me? Like, this is so compelling. It doesn't have to be in the active slot. Like, that is wild. It's weak to electric, like the birds are. It's a flying type, right? So it may be the first fighting type within the card pool that's actually weak to electric. I could be wrong here. Generally, fighting types are not, but it also hits electric types super effectively, which is sick. The attack is so reliable, the HP is so nice, and the ability is just. I love this card. I love this card. This card is so exciting, especially because it's a fossil Pokemon as well. I like deck building wise, the things you can do with a card like Aerodactyl EX, because you can make the other Pokemon way more consistent. It requires two sources, like it only requires one source of fighting energy, two different sources of energy, which means you can also incorporate this in dual energy decks as well. This card is hype. This card is hype. It can go in fighting decks, it can go in dual energy decks, and it can make basic Pokemon lineup evolutions like more consistent. Essentially, it can make a lot of decks more consistent because you're mixing in with fossils. I feel like I've been talking about Aerodactyl for like 10 minutes, but I think this card is just absolute whack, and I cannot wait to try. Oh my god, this may be the first card that I build a deck with. This is amazing. How many EX Pokemon did we get? We have Celebi EX. I don't see that in the trailer, but Celebi EX as well. There's a total of did they mention how many EX Pokemon? I think I heard somewhere there was like 5 EX Pokemon. I mean, there's 5 new trainer cards. 5 new exciting Pokemon. We get 5 new EX ones. So we got Mew, we got Aerodactyl. These are the ones that are up here, but then Celebi is also confirmed, and then 2 other ones. Celebi will be a basic one, by the way. Celebi is kind of like a grass version of Mew, fundamentally. Like, it has the same stat spread in the games and stuff. It'll be interesting. I mean, it'll be a grass type, pretty sure. I mean, it could be a psychic type too. It's a grass psychic type, but I expect it to be a grass type. That's like its primary typing. Do we see it around here? There's Aerodactyl, there's Mew. There's the new Tauros. There's the new Vaporeon there. And the Dedenne. We got the new blue. I paused it at the right time. During your opponent's next turn, all of your opponent's attack take -10 damage from attacks from your opponent's Pokemon. I was thinking the other day, I wonder if they're ever going to make a card that weakens the opponent's attack. Like a reverse Giovanni. Very interesting card. I don't know how... Like, I think we will see this card in decks that want to stall out a bit more. I think Dragonite wants this card, for example. Like, any sort of deck that wants to buy time and build up a win condition and is a little bit slower as an archetype can benefit from a card like Blue because it can just halt aggressive decks down. So I love the incorporation of a trainer card like this for the game. Leaf is a crazy one. Wait, I stopped it there. I want to see... Yeah, like you guys see the Leaf here, right? This is a really, really scary one. Leaf is a supporter trainer card. She's another trainer. I forgot from what generation this girl is from, but basically it says during this turn, the retreat cost of your active Pokemon is 2 less. You thought X speed was already good. The difference is you cannot chain Leaf onto something like a Sabrina or any other supporter card, right? It's important to know. But it allows you to retreat for 2 less. Like, deck building is going to be different now because most decks run X speed. Being able to pivot is really important. X speed is a very powerful card. Now that you have Leaf to take into account, this is definitely going to be a meta-defining card. There's no way Leaf is not a meta-defining card. But this is going to make deck building a lot more interesting because now you have to factor in, everybody's running the same supporter trainer cards, right? But now things are going to really shuffle around and you really have to make a decision because you only have 20 cards to work with. So you always have to cut something for something. And Leaf, I think, is going to be one of the more meta-defining ones or meta-impactful ones for without a doubt. Because being able to retreat for 2 less, like even Snorlax can pivot now with this thing. Do you run Leaf alongside X speed? Like, what distributions are we looking at here? You know, because if you run too many cards that are focused on retreating, like maybe some decks really want that. Yeah, definitely one of the stronger supporter cards and going to be very impactful on the meta for sure. And we'll see just like how decks look with the incorporation of Leaf. Do they actually cut X speed? Do they run it alongside it? What are they sacrificing for that? Very, very powerful. A bit of a scary card in that regard because now you have to factor in Leaf for pivoting. Now you have to think like, well, they can't. It's kind of like, in a way, it's almost as if non-Weezing decks got their own version of Koga. though it's not exactly, because Koga also, like, the appeal is that it heals your wheezing, right? But decks are going to be able to pivot faster now in general. So that's going to be very important. That's going to allow a lot of decks, a lot of Pokemon with higher retreat costs to compete with decks like Pikachu EX that are just naturally very easy to pivot with because their retreat costs are so low. So Leaf will change the meta. In some way or another, it will change the meta for sure. We got Magmar over there with the 2 energy Fire Blast dealing 80 damage. You lose all the energy. It's a one-time attack, right? But it's 80 damage, which means if you Blaine this, because it works with Blaine, you deal for 110. And it's a basic Pokemon. It doesn't need 2 pieces. It's interesting because it's just one attack. Maybe Magmar does want to go with Moltres. Like, I can see Moltres decks running Magmar as kind of like a way to bring in something to hit hard and heavy. Maybe we see some Moltres decks that are like hybrid of Blaine and then something like Arcanine as well. I think this Magmar card is quite compelling in that regard, because unlike Ninetales, it requires no more than 1 piece. So it can allow you to make use of excess fire energy from Moltres, and it's going to be really interesting in that regard. And then we got Tauros here. I mean, a lot of these cards are listed here, like this Tauros. But first of all, before we talk about the Tauros, like, let me see if there's anything else that I think the cards that we see, there's Snivy, which means we're getting Snivy into Superior, which that's going to be an interesting evolution line. Larvesta is the evolution that leads to Volcarona. I am so hyped for Volcarona, you have no idea. Like, the initial Larvesta is resilient, but it has a retreat cost of 2, and the combustion attack is relatively weak. I expect Volcarona to be something pretty crazy, because Volcarona is a very powerful Pokemon within the games, and it's I'm really hyped to see, like, I mean, I'm pretty sure they listed it here, right? Like, every card that shows there is here. Yeah. We have it all here. Dolomize is another basic that evolves into something later. It has 100 HP. It's 100 HP basic that I'm pretty sure evolves into something. And the Energy Whip, it's basically Grass's version of Lapras, right? Because the Energy Whip, it functions exactly the same way as Lapras, but unlike Lapras, there's no... Well, you have Lilligant. You do have Lilligant. But it feels like a heavy investment just to get this to deal 90 damage. But I'm pretty sure this Pokemon evolves into something. Correct me if I'm wrong, because some generations I'm a little bit more like rusty in. Pun intended, I guess. But I do think that this card evolves into something else. So it'll be interesting to see if that's the case. Marshadow has Revenge, which is really interesting. If any of your opponent's Pokemon were knocked out by damage from an attack, so it doesn't count stuff like poison, during your opponent's last turn, this attack does 60 more damage, so 100 damage for 2. So essentially, a basic version of like a Primeape with a condition. Very, very interesting card. Good HP stat at 80 for a basic Pokemon, and 2 energy, potentially dealing 100. I think Marshadow is going to be this card is going to be super, super good. This card is going to be very prevalent in a lot of fighting decks, I feel, because this effect can be, eventually your opponent has to take down your Pokemon. So building this up in the back and then bringing it in and just like, especially like running it with cards like Sabrina, so you can get like a proper target for it, and just revenge killing. Revenge killing EX Pokemon has never been easier than with Marshadow. I like how a lot of the cards that we got offer us counters for like these EX decks that we see often. That's why I've always said that I wasn't particularly like crazy about the no EX format, because I don't think this game needs it. I think this game is going to evolve to a point where, you will get punished for playing EX Pokemon. Like, EX are not the all-in be-all of the game. We get a tool here in Tauros against them that has the fighting. This is a different version of Tauros, basically confirming that we can just have a bunch of different versions of Pokemon, which is really exciting. 100 HP, 3 energy, fighting tackle attack, 40 plus damage. If your opponent active Pokemon is an EX Pokemon, this attack does 80 more damage. So this attack is absolutely worthless if it's not targeting EX Pokemon. But if it is, you one-shot Pikachu EX. You deal 120 damage to all EX Pokemon, which with a Giovanni boost allows you to one-shot Starmie. But, you know, having to build up 3 energy to one-shot Starmie, like, Tauros is interesting. I don't know how playable this card specifically will be, because I feel like the conditions are like very narrow, very specific, and it's still a very expensive attack, right? Like, it's still 3 energy. But there's going to be a lot of decks like this card. If people start running this card, if you run a deck with a lot of EX Pokemon, like if you run a deck with both Starmie EX and Articuno, then you could find yourself getting bodied by Tauros, because Tauros survives both of their attacks and can dish out tremendous damage back to them. So it's nice. I like the card existing. People will play it. I don't think it'll be it'll be super, super good. I think something like Mew will be more reliable as a counter, but I do like it existing because I think it'll make people have to think more about their deck structure, which is important. We got a new version of Execute, which has the growth spurt, which takes an energy. It's basically a mass version of Execute from Melton. It's a very similar effect. It's the same effect from Melton, really. It allows you to build up energy onto the Execute. It's interesting, though, because this is not a tremendous effect for Executor, because Executor only requires 1 energy to attack. It does allow you to build up energy onto it to pivot easier with it, though. So if you're going second with Execute, you can do this. You can put an extra energy onto it. Then you evolve into. I guess it makes Executor a little bit better going second, because you are able to pivot Executor EX, because you're able to pivot with it faster, right? You can use that energy to retreat, essentially. It's interesting that they incorporated a ramping element to a card that only has a 1 energy attack. Unless we can expect a different version of Executor within this set as well. Like, not necessarily another EX Executor, but like another version of Executor besides the one that we have, which is more expensive to attack with. And that would be quite interesting as well. Morlul, basically, I'm not as familiar with this. This Pokemon, I think, is like a fairy grass type, right? I don't recall if it's like 2 or 3. I think it's 2 evolutions, maybe. It's a pretty standard basic mon. I wonder what it'll evolve into. Super hyped for Volcarona. Really intrigued for Superior. Maybe that means we're also getting Emboar and Samurott, their evolution lines. This is 80 new cards. Keep in mind, it's 80 new cards, which is exactly what I wanted out of this set. 80. Oh my God, man. This is so. And then we got the Dedenne with the Thundershock. The Dedenne, we have a version of Pincurchin that works with just 1 energy. This is massive. Massive. Now you have a weaker version of the attack that can paralyze. I'm gonna be making some Dedenne with Hypno, like a true degenerate. This is very exciting because now you can incorporate paralysis without requiring 2 specific sources of electric energy for it, and that's actually very relevant. Everything else about it is very very vanilla, with a 60 HP for the basic and stuff. But being able to paralyze, this card can be really annoying. But that's like the 1 coin flip effect. That is the 1 coin flip effect out of all these cards. I was worried that we're gonna get just a bunch of coin flip effects, and the opposite happened. Like, we got 1 coin flip effect with a paralysis. Everything else, what the fuck is that? Oh yeah, and Vaporeon. Okay, yeah, this is the leaf that I was talking about. Vaporeon, we got a new Vaporeon, which is really exciting. It has less HP than the one that we have now, but it has the washout ability, like a very weak attack. But as often as you like during your turn, you may move a water energy from one of your bench Pokemon to one of your active Pokemon. You can actually shuffle your water energy around your water type Pokemon. And this actually works well with Starmie because you retreat and you don't spend energy to retreat with Starmie. So you can send the energy to something else that needs it. This is a really cool card. Really cool card. The problem is it's a little bit more, it's easier to take down, and its own attack kind of sucks. So you kind of want to play this card for its ability. And I wonder right now, what from water actually really, but this is super interesting because This allows you to play. This is actually super cool because it allows you to play certain Pokemon that require a lot of energy, like Seadra. Even potentially like Blastoise EX. You can lead off and you can make a deck that actually runs, different Pokemon lineups, and you're actually playing normally. But then with thanks to Vaporeon, you can just basically move all of your energy onto the Blastoise, and then just pop off. Right? It's a Lieutenant Surge effect that is not limited to just one moment. It's like, and you control exactly how much energy you give in. So this is an incredibly powerful effect, and I cannot wait to brew some water decks with this. Like, the more I think about this, my God, man, like I've been talking for 30 minutes. This expansion is so, it's already like, we've looked at 15 out of the 80 cards. Given some of them will be like variants and stuff, but still, we've scratched the surface, and there's already so much to say. Like, oh my God, I'm on cloud nine because I was starting to have doubts. I'm like, is it just gonna be a bunch of coin flip effects, the expansion? And it's like nothing like that. What I've been saying, like I should have stood my ground more. I should have believed more because, oh man, this is incredible. I've been rambling for 30 minutes. I'm just so excited. I don't know if this video was all over the place, but I'm so happy, man. I'm so happy because I've invested so much into this game, and I've been saying that this game has so much potential. And there's been a lot of negativity and stuff, and this is amazing. This is truly amazing. Man, I can't wait. I'm gonna cook. I have so many decks to do. These cards not only combine with themselves, but combining the cards with the card pool. Like, as the card pool expands, the options are gonna grow exponentially regarding deck building, and it's only the beginning. And then at the end of January, we got like a brand new set with like almost like 300 cards. And oh my God, man. This game is amazing. I'm so happy. I'm gonna stop rambling because I feel like I'm going in circles at this point. Thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you guys think about the new cards. Which card are you personally most excited for? I got my eyes on Aerodactyl EX. Aerodactyl EX is hype as hell. Blue is very interesting. Does seem weaker than Leaf. Leaf seems very powerful, but I do think some people may underestimate the impact Blue will have in more defensive decks. And I'm excited to mess around with that as well. And so I have so many questions. Like, this Execute really indicates that we're getting another different version of Executor. Volcarona, which is a Pokemon that I really like. Like, what are the other AX Pokemon? Like, I need to know. I need to know. Like, they need to reveal the cards like now. But yeah, I'm gonna shut up. Thank you for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Let me know what you think about the new cards. Because I'm just gonna keep on yapping. Like, I'm not gonna be able to stop yapping. I would yap for like an hour, but I gotta be professional. And I gotta calm down. Appreciate ya. Hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. I'll see you guys tomorrow.